It's episode 33 of The Grief of Politics. I'm Joseph Carlson, once again with Avin Carroll. Avin, we're talking about the presidential debates.
Yes.
Presidential candidates.
We're even set up like we're going to do it.
I know, and we're very unserious, and I don't think either of us... years ago I said very hot-button issues like gun control or abortion. If a candidate was on a stage and they asked them, what do you feel about abortion or what do you feel about gun control? And if the candidate just leaned in the mic and said, I pass, I would vote for that person because they'd be like, this is a complex issue that cannot be answered in 60 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever. So...
Small sound bites.
Yeah. So I sent you these articles. I just want to state for the record that you said, one of them, you said, what is this puff piece about Biden?
It is a puff piece.
It's
a giant puff piece for Biden. Like 100%.
Yeah. Well,
and when I called you out on that, you were like, it was really hard to find like things that Joe Biden's accomplished. Like I really had to dig for that.
And go ahead. Go ahead.
And so, there's a reason for it. And I think the vast majority of people would agree that like Democrats are just as unhappy with Joe Biden as Donald Trump. They're slightly less unhappy with Joe Biden than they would be if Donald Trump were president.
I think it depends on your party too.
And believe it or not, Kamala Harris.
You could lead up on the mic, by the way. You have to.
I mean, hopefully the mic is picking me up from
It's
here.
probably
if
fine.
not,
You're fine. This is a new setup. We're trying.
Believe it or not, Kamala Harris's approval rating is actually even worse than Joe Biden's.
Oh.
Joe Biden's is negative 15%. Harris's is negative 18%. Trump is like negative 18.5%. So like hanging out with Harris.
Yeah, it's not good. It's weird. I quickly an aside with Harris, I thought it would be transformative. I remember going, oh, that's an interesting running mate. And then I think there was one time in the beginning she had to do her duty and break a tie. And that's always the thing. Even when Pence was whatever, it was like, oh, I wonder which way he's going to vote. He did it, but Harris did it too. And then after that, it's like nothing, and you're like, okay, well,
that's not true. If you remember in the early days of the Biden-Harris presidency, like she went to the border and did other things.
Oh, that's right.
And repetitively put her foot in her mouth.
Oh, that's right.
And just was out of touch with reality. And like Democrats don't want her as the running mate, even if Biden still stays.
Right.
Even though Democrats don't want Biden really to run again because they're like, man, this guy is old.
Well,
they're not happy with the direction of the country. Like this particular election is a super interesting one because basically the two leading candidates both have massive disapproval ratings. And basically the entire American voting base is like, can we not go in the direction we're going right now and not go in the direction that guy wants to go? Like, isn't there another option?
Well, I was going to ask you your thoughts generally. I mean, my thing is like, it just seems unexciting. So basically, I mean, that's everything I've read and listened to, mostly progressive stuff, but it's just unexciting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that makes people disinterested in the voting, whatever.
I mean, this whole election, assuming Donald Trump actually is the Republican nominee, which, I mean, at this point, it still seems like it's going to be the case.
Yeah.
Assuming Donald Trump is actually the Republican nominee, the entire election is going to be, we must beat Trump. We must beat Biden. There isn't going to be any discussion of policy. There isn't going to be any discussion of like, let's move the country forward. Let's improve the economy. Let's make people's lives better. Hey, we recognize that no one's happy and doesn't feel like the country's moving in the right direction. Let's have some leadership and maybe correct our course a little bit. No, the entire election is going to be, oh my God, you can't let that guy in office.
Right.
If you do, the world is going to end. And on both ends.
Yeah.
Because like, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have basically built up both of the front runners as Satan. He's worse than Hitler. And if he stays in office, all your babies are going to burn alive in the street.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, both sides.
Yeah.
Both sides say that.
Yeah.
So as somewhat more conservative leaning, what did you feel about like the debates with all the candidates? The New York Times article we had laid out the candidates. There was Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Mike Pence at the debate. Vivek Ramaswamy, DeSantis.
Yep.
Tim Scott was there.
Yep.
And was it Burgum that was there? One guy hurt himself. He like tore his Achilles or something, and they said he was.
I think it was Burgum.
Yeah, he was on.
I didn't actually watch the debate.
He was on.
I watched highlights.
Yeah, I did too. I couldn't. Like the wind up and everything, I just couldn't. I wanted to get to like the questions and stuff like that. So like a lot of people cut out just like the questions and the.
Well, and I was at the office, so it just.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then,
while you
and
were
then commuting while it was on, so yeah, I probably could have listened to it.
Yeah, I think the one critique I heard, which was I thought kind of funny, was the this was the vice presidential debate to see who Trump's running mate was going to be, which I don't think.
And everyone says Vivek is the one that's auditioning for it because he's like the second MAGA
right
Republican on the stage.
Well, it's weird though because every interview he keeps saying that Trump was probably one of the greatest presidents we've had or did an amazing job, and so then the follow-up question from people on the left is, so why are you running?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so why? Okay, if he's so good, I think he said in an interview that he wanted to go. He didn't think Trump completed what he set out to do, and he wanted to finish what Trump started, basically.
So my opinion of Vivek is very unflattering.
I don't think you're the only one. I don't think you're the only one that has an unflattering opinion.
First off, if you look at the guy's past, his work on the COVID vaccination should like alienate the people that supposedly would vote for him anyway.
What did he? I don't know about.
Well, because he's a pharmaceutical businessman.
Oh, right.
So,
he is big pharma. He had a bio.
He is big pharma. Like that's the whole thing. And like the stuff that he did as big pharma was literally the things that he's trying to campaign. Like, they're taking advantage of the little guy. But like, he pumped and dumped his own stock and like screwed the little guy out of it. Like he is an opportunist who has seen that if he comes out with these particular set of talking points, he's going to get an audience. And guess what? It's working.
It is.
He's actually a contender.
He did have a debate with Mehdi Hassan that didn't go. Mehdi Hassan didn't have like a mic drop moment because I think he's a good debater. Whatever you believe about his politics, Mehdi Hassan's actually a very good debater. But what I saw in the interview was Vivek tried to dodge a question about Trump because what he said was, after January 6th, Vivek had a tweet or something that said what Trump did was abhorrent, literally like abhorrent and terrible. And so Mehdi just asked him 4 times, what did he do that was abhorrent and terrible? And Vivek kept trying to dodge. And Mehdi said, you still haven't answered the question. And then like that third time said, that's 3 times you haven't answered the question, and kept just repeating the question. And he kept kind of dodging. And that's when it wasn't a mic drop moment. It wasn't a gotcha. It was just like, so you're just flat out refusing to answer the question type thing, And I will say the one good thing with Vivek that I liked was what he defined woke in a way that I think, although I don't agree with it, we had that episode on being woke.
Yeah.
He actually defined it where I was like, okay, if that's your definition of woke, then I understand where you're coming from. I don't agree with you, but like, instead of people not being able to define it or it being whatever it needs to be in the moment, he did define it. So I was like, well, at least there's that. At least, where he sits.
He's not an unintelligent person. I just think that he is a straight up opportunist. I 100% think that he's trying to get on Trump's good graces because he's thinking that Trump's going to win the presidency. And if he's somewhere in the cabinet or anywhere else, right, like he's won.
Yeah. And then he said I think on the Mehdi Hassan show or some other interview where he said he really wants Trump to be part of his team and be in the cabinet or be an advisor. And everybody's like, Trump is not second fiddle. He will not. He will not take a job.
Every single one of the Republican nominees, when that whole the debate was, who's running for vice president, like every single person up there has said publicly, like, I'm not running for second place. But I don't buy it at all.
Yeah, Trump's in the 40% approval rating with conservatives or whatever, and the primary conservatives.
He's got at least a 30 to 50% lead, depending on what polls you're looking at. Now, that's probably going to change as the trial dates for all of the indictments get closer.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt Trump. The thing that I'm just still befuddled with, and I've probably said it here before, is like, I don't know a single conservative person, not one, who is like, victim politics is a good thing. Victim mentality is a good thing. Like,
well, I find that strange.
It's the polar opposite in conservative politics.
Yeah, I know.
All the time. Don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. And yet Trump's whole campaign is, I'm a victim. They're out to get me. Support me. I'm a victim. And everyone's like, they're out to get him. He's a victim. Let's support him. And I'm like,
it's a witch hunt. You still hear that. It's a witch hunt.
The guy's a freaking loser. He lost you the 2020 election. He
lost
the midterms.
Yeah, he lost the midterms.
Like, he's toxic.
Yeah.
And he's...
Oh, sorry. Something. I have cats. They're adorable.
Yeah. Being distracted.
We both have cats. We find them adorable. They're adorable.
And anyway, like, the whole campaign for Trump right now, all of it is Democrats are out to get me. Mm-hmm. This is a witch hunt. They're like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened.
Yep.
I have a friend who's like, what we're doing right now is a banana republic. This doesn't happen anywhere else.
Did you bring up the Hunter Biden thing? They're actually...
The last time I saw him, I actually did bring up that, yes.
And he's going to be indicted on gun charges, so that's something.
Actually, it sounds like that's going to go away.
I thought that it was renewed.
They did it, but then came around and like there's something about that particular law that may not apply. I just saw yesterday. But regardless of what it is, they're actually going to do
a process.
Impeachment inquiry into Biden. Like, are you related? I'm like, cool. Now, mind you, it's all Republicans going through and doing it, and everyone's like, the Republicans are doing this without support, without a vote.
Well,
and then it's like, but the Democrats did exactly that and opened the floodgates. So, like, turnabout's fair play,
well,
guys.
Even some conservatives are like, not even moderate ones, like ones that don't like Biden are like, is this the best use of our time? Like
right.
they're like,
right.
Of
which, personally, hey, if there's smoke, there's a pretty good chance there's fire. Let's take a look. I had no problem with it when they did it to Trump. I have no problem with them doing it to Biden.
Yeah,
we should be holding our elected politicians to a very high level of standards, and we just don't. We don't, because our side has to be the good guy.
Yeah. You have to be the victor. We have to
listening
win.
to a really interesting podcast on the way down here, and like reading some articles for our next podcast related to it, and it's just it's further solidifying my viewpoint that people are tying way, way, way too much of their identity to their politics, and if you question their politics, you're attacking their identity.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a big. I've been thinking about that too, but I mean, you said kind of what my brain was trying to work out, which was I have heard that a lot on the right about, don't be the victim. Don't. You gotta push through. Whatever you're.
Lift yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah, don't. Which ironically, I don't know if people know the actual quote, but when Martin Luther King was saying that, he was being facetious, saying people are telling us to pick us up by our own bootstraps when we don't have boots. So now everybody says, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, you didn't hear the quote. Anyway.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think, it's something that I thought about that you hear that, especially like the Daily Wire and stuff, they always go on about victimhood and don't be a victim and all that. And push through. If it's a problem, you just got to grind it out. You just got to overcome what it is. Mm-hmm. And, but when it comes to Trump, oh, wait, he's the victim. It's a witch hunt. Which I will say on the left, there's been people pointing out on the left, they would love to have a debate like this where people that probably know a little bit more about the law and everything, like conservative and liberal, go over each charge. Because everybody said, it's a witch hunt. It's like 91 charges? You don't think one of those is...
I haven't actually, right. So like we've gone over this before. Like the news is just so frustrating for me that I generally just don't follow it. Like I read the articles for this, and every time I'm like, ugh. I don't follow it as closely as I should. But conservative friends that I talk to aren't hearing the charges because they don't want to. So they're getting their media from one particular source, and they're not bothering to go get it from another source that's actually giving them all the details. I don't know a single one that's actually read through all the charges. Like I think I told you before, I had a friend of mine that I was talking to a couple months ago about the charges against Trump, and he's like, oh, it's a big huge witch hunt. He declassified all those documents, and I was like, he admitted on tape that he couldn't declassify them.
He should have. Yeah, he said
flat out said I should have declassified this, but I didn't. So we've got a problem.
Yeah.
With the reporter who was recording it.
Well, yeah,
that got leaked. He got mad about the leak. He didn't question the statement, which means it's factual.
Yeah.
He questions everything.
Yeah.
He didn't question the statement. He wasn't like, oh, this is an AI deep fake. That's fake news. Like, no. He was just upset that it leaked.
So apparently,
So he admitted flat out he couldn't have done what he did there. So,
Yeah.
he's already going to lose that one.
yes, they're all going to be vice presidents, whatever. Was there somebody? Oh, you know who we forgot to mention was actually we forgot to mention DeSantis.
No, we said DeSantis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I just forgot him in the moments that I said his name, and
Yeah.
I don't. He seems to be drowning a little bit with. He's doing all right, but not great. He hasn't really got a bump from the debates. It seems like some of his money's going away, or maybe being allocated to another candidate, maybe, or whatever.
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
The meme that came after the debate, that whole can't smile, weird awkwardness thing that came out of it,
Which
right?
was weird. That wasn't the first time either.
Even when he had zingers, they were awkward.
Yeah.
Just the intonation of his voice and the volume and the way it was like.
Well, even he was
Are
on
you
the
faking your emotions? Are you a robot, man?
Yeah, well, there was a thing on the campaign trail where it's like a meet and greet, and he's meeting people. And what I thought was interesting was there was this little girl, and they were handing out ice cream, for the people.
Yeah.
And it's a little girl; she's maybe 7 to 9.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, what do you got there?" And she goes, "Oh, ice cream," And he goes, "A lot of sugar in it." And I was like, "It's not." He's got kids too. I told you this offline, but I think. There is parents. I heard an interview with Ben Shapiro, and I think he was half joking, but he said, it's hard for me to care about people that aren't my family. And I think he was half joking, half serious. But I've talked to parents like that, too, where they're like, a kid will just be going nuts. And they won't hit the kid or anything, or, step in, or just be like, knock it off. They'll just leave him alone. And I'm like...
Are you for hitting kids, Joe? Joe, did you just
not
endorse
today.
child hitting?
No, not today. But what I'm saying is, you're a parent. You could just be like, hey, can you guys... quiet down or something, But I've talked to parents who are like, it's not my kid, it's not my problem. And I think with DeSantis, maybe he does. Obviously he loves his family a lot, but there's not that connection with just kids or people. And that's like you said, his general problem is he just has no riz, as the children say nowadays, no charisma, no riz. And that it just seems like he's people. I don't know if you ever seen The Boys show on Amazon about.
I'm familiar with it. I haven't seen it.
So I don't think I've seen the episode, but there's a meme going around with Ron DeSantis trying to smile, and then Homelander, who's a psychopath, Superman, trying to smile, and it looks very similar. And now people are like, well, I can't unsee it now. These two men that are trying to smile.
The thing is, though, is it's probably never going to actually hit DeSantis's base.
Right.
He's won over his fans, and they've made their decision. Now, some people will change, right? We know that's going to be the case. And when we start getting through the primaries, people will start to drop out. But, the reality of it is every one of these people is super confident, bordering on arrogant people. So most of them are probably going to stay in the race. Most of them probably are not going to drop out.
One person did.
Suarez.
He was Florida, right? I think he was a governor of some... Mayor of Florida somewhere.
Yeah.
Orlando.
Right. Super, super small. And, he wants to get out of the way. We ran into this in 2016. There was a reason that Trump was the nominee. Too many people kept running. Trump never, ever would have gotten the nomination. We wouldn't even have him as president if some people had just swallowed their flippin' pride and stepped aside.
Yeah.
But no, we can't do it. There's a whole bunch of arrogant, self-important people in the Republican Party, and the Republican Party can't figure out how to rally around a candidate.
Yeah.
And the Democratic Party can't stop rallying around people that are just not relevant anymore.
Yeah?
Because that's what they do. The Democratic Party is like, that's our guy. We're going to rig everything so our guy wins.
Yeah.
Even this person over here who's more popular, no.
Yeah, what they did with Bernie Sanders.
That's literally what I'm talking about.
Yeah, speaking of that, too, with them not having a debate and people kind of quietly or maybe not so quietly endorsing Biden, that is, you and I watch Breaking Points a lot. It is kind of sad in a way that, I've heard of Marianne Williamson. I've heard of... obviously Bernie, Cornel West, even though he's a third party, he's been doing some interviews, but not a lot. And I would like to hear from these people, to hear their whatever. Usually just seems like it gets clipped out where they get in a disagreement, like the debate, quote unquote, with somebody where they get on something and they just start arguing and then, nothing's really happening.
Yeah.
And they own each other or whatever. But, it's just, it's really frustrating. And even as me, progressive or whatever. It's I want to see more. Like I want people to go, yeah, if like Newsom has been in the news, he like butted heads with Sean Hannity in a really good interview. I thought debate, whatever you want to call it. And he supported Biden. But if he said, hey, I support Biden, but I am running for president. Like, he's our president now. I'm supporting him, but I will see him like in the debates. It's like, great. We have another voice. I don't actually know what the Democrats have to percentage of support they have to get a debate. Well, that's my question. So you looked into a little bit more. Are they actually going to do debates, the DNC? Because the article I found was old.
I didn't dig any deeper.
Oh, okay.
I just saw your article was really old and was like, I wonder.
I tried to find a new one, and that was like the latest one I could find, but it's conjecture now whether they're going to do it or not.
I mean, remembering across my whole life, I don't have memory of any incumbent president ever actually being like forced to go through the primary process again. And maybe they do, but it's like token.
Yeah, I think they said it's like it isn't unique because I think they said since Ford there hasn't, like if there's been an incumbent Democrat president, they don't have debates.
Yeah, which like I get it, right? Like you're going to, again, rally around your candidate. The Democratic Party does a good job of doing that. In this particular case, though, the rally should be everyone sitting in a room with Biden and having a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
You aren't going to make it, bud.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's rough, too, because
you're hurting our chances. Because the current polling actually, depending on which poll you're reading, has Trump and Biden back and forth by a point.
Yeah.
So Trump is winning in some polls by a point, and Biden is winning in some polls by a point.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
No one should stand a chance in polling against Trump.
Yeah.
Or against Biden. Or Trump shouldn't stand a chance in polling against anybody.
Right.
Like he shouldn't. The man is like whatever you think about him, he is too bombastic. He can't control himself.
Well, he has the riz. He's got charisma.
Right.
I don't like Trump, but man, when he gets on stage, it's like they were playing old debate clips when he would like and you're just like, oh, that's it right there. Like Megyn Kelly interviewed him and they played the old clip where she was moderating, what was it, the 2016, one of the debates early on. And she said, she read quotes of what he said about women, that they're fat, pigs, ugly, all that kind of stuff. Read all those quotes.
Yeah.
And he said, only Rosie O'Donnell. And the crowd erupted. And I go, that's it. That's it right there. You just win everybody over. You practice your tight five. I don't know what he's doing up there, but like at that moment, you're like, oh, he's got him.
Yeah.
Like, and so... Yeah, and then he even said that they played it and Trump said, "Well, you."
And this is exactly why I wanted Trump at the debate, because Christie would be able to zing him back.
Yeah, and I'll say this for Christie.
No one else was going to, because they're all going to kowtow to him.
Yeah.
But I would have really loved to have seen Trump out there making those comments and have Christie come back.
Christie had that great moment where he was at some dinner or something talking to conservatives, and he said, Trump's a loser, and went on that, and everybody booed. And he goes, yeah, I know, you're booing the truth. And I thought, that's a guy that could at least stand up and say, what the heck? And I think, I think he promised a place in Trump's cabinet or something.
He had it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, he worked with Trump, and that's why he's coming out and be like, I worked with him. I know the guy.
Yeah, and Trump gave him COVID. So then he was like in the hospital.
Yeah.
So that might have been the moment where he's like, wait a minute. Like he got out of the hospital.
I still don't think that's the case, right? Like there's a lot of other things that you find out working from Trump. And one of the big, huge things, and this is why I absolutely think it's hilarious that so many people rally around him. Like any Republican in office right now that's rallying around Trump, like why? You know, the moment you aren't important to him anymore, he will throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
He'll get in the driver's seat and back over you. Like...
Yep.
He doesn't care. He will love you and laud you and praise you when you're puffing him up. And the moment you question him, like, you might as well be his worst enemy ever.
Yeah, because Bill Burr was like his guy. And the moment Bill Burr was like, Bill Barr.
Yeah.
I like that comedian. Anyway, Bill Barr, he was his guy with the, whatever you think about the Mueller report, he did all that. But then when he found there was no election interference and they did their own investigation, and he said, listen, there was some interference, but that happens every year, like a dead person votes or well, not a dead person votes, but somebody's got the wrong name on a ballot. Like it was like hundreds of votes, not like hundreds of thousands. Then all of a sudden he's like the corrupt Bill Burr,
and everyone buys it.
Yeah.
Everyone buys it. I don't talk to a single conservative friend, not one, that thinks that. That's not entirely true. I do have some conservative friends that are like, yeah, Trump definitely lost the election. But most of my conservative friends are like, no, it was totally stolen. It's totally corrupt. What about all the fake votes? What about all the mail-in ballots? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you serious?
Like the accidental 100 that got whatever.
There hasn't been a single substantiated claim, even in the incredibly conservative states, that's found any level of voter tampering.
Yeah, like Arizona, they recounted twice and nothing. I think Pennsylvania twice and nothing.
It's such an infinitesimally small amount of numbers, but people are so disconnected from facts and reality. They're just bought. It's like,
well, does that mean talking to those conservative friends? Does that mean are they still going to vote? Or are they going to go to a voting place? Or are they going to do mail-in? Because
one of my conservative friends the other day posted a post on Facebook about how Washington's election is a sham because it's all mail-in voting, and they live in Washington.
Yeah. So do you think it's going to be like 2020 where, Biden may lose support among people, but if people don't vote for Trump because they think everything's rigged, do you think that would like sway the percentage points in the other way of like, well,
I mean, maybe enough conservatives won't vote because of that, but I don't know. I mean, we're going to go back to most places having open polling stations, right?
Yeah.
And so that's
I would go into a polling station if it was, convenient, but
we don't have them in Washington. We are a 100% vote by mail state, so you could.
I did years ago, like when Obama, but
it's been decades since we've gone to exclusively mail-in voting in Washington state, which is why Kim Wyman was hired by the Biden administration. The Republican Secretary of State of Washington was hired by the Biden administration to help them with like voting policy and rules, because Washington State's mail-in voting system is seen as the gold standard because we have such a low level of interference.
Yeah.
Because we do a very good job of it. We've been doing it for so long that we've figured out how to manage it and how to make it more secure and how to make it more trustworthy.
Yeah.
And my friend that lives in Washington posted the comment about like it's big, huge. Like, how do you trust voting in Washington? And it's the same thing you always see. Put $500 in an envelope and mail it. If you don't trust that, why would you trust mailing your vote? Okay, well, I'm trusting the post office not to lose my money versus trusting the post office not to lose my vote. The thing is, in Washington State at least, you can log in online and see if your vote was actually counted. It's not hard.
I didn't know that.
It's not hard. I'm not surprised you didn't know because it's not broadly publicized, but you can log in and see if your vote was counted.
I think for me too, there's been talk. I don't know. It's on the conservative side, but I know on the liberal side, it's like, should we make it a? I mean, we did an episode on voting, but like make it a national holiday.
100%.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Because those polling places that are so far away, it's like, okay, well, you have all day, and it sucks. But if this is the only way you can do your duty as a citizen,
right?
Then make it a holiday. And then
the reality of it is people. Anyone I talk to, anyone listening to this show is probably going to agree, right? Like it just feels like life is getting harder and harder and harder to get by.
Yeah.
It feels like we're working more and more and we're not getting ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the pretty common refrain, right? We talk about during the pandemic, towards the end of the pandemic, right? Like there's all these people that are getting raises and there's this fear of a wage price spiral where wages are going to go up, so prices are going to go up.
Gas went back up to $5 a gallon again.
Wages are going to go up, prices are going to have to go up, right? And gas is getting more expensive. It's actually trickling back down. The most recent Consumer Price Index report came out a couple days ago. So we're recording this on Saturday, the 16th of September, 2023. And Wednesday of this week, CPI came out, and oil prices are actually sort of like...
The crude oil or actual...
Creeping back down. Crude.
Yeah. Because I know it was like $5.19 a while ago.
Am I remembering that backwards? And actually, gas by my place went down by 10 cents a gallon this week.
So it's like what, $5?
It went from $5.17 to $5.07. Yeah. It's still over $5 a gas in Washington. But we also have the most expensive gas in the country because we have crazy high gas taxes that our governor refused to put a moratorium on during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyway, so we talk about like wages are going up, but the studies coming out and the research showing that is like, yeah, it is for the top half of wage earners, but for the bottom half, like it's not really moving a whole lot.
Well, I mean, not to. I think we should do an episode on unions, but there, you probably heard of the United Auto Workers. I mean, there's this thing of like, hey, we just want what you have. I mean, the auto workers. That's what the president of the United Auto Workers, the strike thing, said. Is he said, CEOs got a 40% wage increase. We want a 40% wage increase. You know,
was it a wage increase or was it stock?
No, this was actually their
Base compensation?
Yes. So
this is the common refrain that we have back and forth all the time, right? Like these super high paid executives are very frequently paid in stock options and other stock benefit and profit shares and stuff like that. So that's where it does.
Well, the thing is, I need to read about it more, but I mean, we're going to derail the thing because we're going to do 3 episodes this episode. But yeah, I mean, I don't like for me. I mean, just speaking personally, it's kind of unexciting this time.
Yeah,
and it's
a rehash of the last election.
I had a friend yell at me for voting for Biden last election. It wasn't you. I don't have a lot of friends in my index.
I wouldn't yell at you over that. I would disagree with you, but I wouldn't yell at you.
Yeah, yelled at. I got yelled at.
Well, yeah, because to the most conservatives, the other guy is the devil, and your children are going to burn in the streets. Like, the hatred is visceral. The podcast I was listening today actually used a perfect wording for it. When someone attacks your politics now, because it's become such a big part of our identity, it's an existential threat. Because my politics identifies who I am, and if you attack my politics, you're attacking who I am. So psychologically, it's a psychiatrist. No, he's a social scientist, but a lot of psychology in his background.
Yep.
Who did that? And I was like, oh man, that's such a perfect way to describe it.
Well, I mean, one thing I'll say that this same friend like complained about our show, which is awesome. I was like, feedback.
Yeah.
Give a comment.
Even if it's mean.
Yeah, yeah, you can do mean ones. Because I'm like, oh, we're cool, frowny face emoji. I don't know what that means. But I mean, the reason why I like doing this with you is because we both. Yeah, because that's what my friend said is that they're like, you know. He's conservative. He's like, he didn't push back on you on this, and he didn't talk about my things because he thinks I'm weird because I'm progressive. But he's like, he didn't push back on you enough. And I'm like, that's not the point. Like, the point isn't us to stop every 30 seconds and be like, actually, that's wrong. Actually, that's wrong. Actually, because then it's like, no, like.
It's to understand.
Yeah, it's like, okay. And then I told you, like, I listened to a long interview with Ben Shapiro, and I don't agree with his politics, but that whole interview. It was from the Iced Coffee Hour. I forget the host name, but they're like real estate people. But they interviewed him for almost 2 hours, and Ben said, "Oh, this is how my brain works," and then like explain certain things, and you're like, "Oh, wow." So like, I don't agree with him, but now when he says something on a show, I'll be like, "That's why. That's why he does." And I mean, that's why we have. I don't know if you watch the Wisecrack channel on YouTube. They're like philosophy tube kind of, and they have researchers and stuff, and they do a thing. They're doing a whole thing about debates. And how through time, debates used to be debates where you try to change people's mind and whatever. And then even in the 1800s, towards the end of like the Enlightenment or whatever, I'm kind of halfway through the video, it turned into entertainment. So then the actual logistics of debate kind of went away, where it was more about let's entertain the crowd. We don't really need to change their mind on policy or whatever. And I think you're seeing that especially with YouTube now of like, you know, we've talked about I don't want to do it, and I don't think you'll disagree with me. I don't ever want to put like destroyed on our videos or like
unless it's actually describing something that is legitimately destroyed.
Yeah, we don't destroy each other in a debate because it's like no, we're just having a discussion, you know. And but that's part of this video is like that's kind of been destroyed through. Well, it's kind of YouTube has changed that calculus, so people have to put that because of the algorithm, and then it's not great. I mean, what do you think about? Do you feel the same way about the presidential thing that it's just unremarkable or un?
I mean, I don't think it's unremarkable, and I think like every single person I talk to has really passionate, deep, emotional feelings about the election cycle where we're at. I mean, I had a conversation with a coworker yesterday. It was like there's a deep emotionality to what's going on. I just don't think anyone's inspired.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a good. Yeah, that's a good.
Like there is.
You picked a good word.
The whole motivation on this election is not the other guy. The other guy is going to burn your babies in the street, and it doesn't matter, like who it ends up being. The exception to it is coming out of, because you were talking about like the debate, and we never actually came full circle about like who I thought did a good job there, and I was really impressed by Nikki Haley. I thought
she had a good moment.
She was extremely concise.
Yeah.
I think she was really well put together. I think she...
Well, she understands, whatever I think about her politics, she understands about foreign policy. She was in the UN for years. She was a ambassador or whatever. So
and
like
she's measured and reasoned. She's not... She did a good job of staying in the fight. She didn't let people walk all over her, and she stood her ground really, really well. And she did it with logical, reasoned debate.
Yeah, and she brought up abortion.
Statements. Right.
Yeah, because Pence was like, we're going to do a national. And she goes, we don't have the senators or whatever to do that. We've never had the amount of senators. We'll be pushed back, and so now you're going to make this. Like, I was like, wow. Like, good for you, Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
And
Pence did a good job, too, in standing up and, like, basically calling everyone to the mat. Did I do my job?
Yeah, he's always, I mean, lately he's really been on that about, it was either my job or the Constitution, and I picked the Constitution, or or the interest of our party or the Constitution, and I picked the Constitution.
Right.
And
you know what? He's the patriot that comes out of that. He's the one who's labeled as the non-patriot.
Yeah. Also, it was funny.
my opinion.
There was some Iowa rally or some rally he was at where he was getting off the bus, and someone said, "You're a traitor. You need to read the Constitution." And he had for Mike Pence, who is kind of not talk about somebody who doesn't have Riz. Mike Pence.
What was the description that someone wants to use? Milquetoast?
He's very milquetoast. He's the they said like the stock image for like a corporate white guy if you're doing like a corporate whatever. But his response is really good. They said, you're a traitor. You need to read the Constitution. And he said, do your job. And he said, I did. Maybe you should read the Constitution. I thought, for Mike Pence, that's an amazing comeback for him to be like, no, but basically saying like, I did do my job and I did read the Constitution. And
he did do his job. And he did, because he does know the Constitution.
Well, even when he's like, because in the the affidavit, or the, what do they call it, the charges document or whatever, where they lay out their case.
Yeah, indictment.
Affidavit. What?
Indictment.
The indictment. Yeah, all those quotes of him like sitting there with Trump, and Trump saying, "One, oh, you're too honest." But even him asking a few times, because he said, "Can I do this? Like, I don't think I could do this." Because Trump had that lawyer that also is a whatever, and they're like, "Well, we'll figure it out." And he's like, "I don't think I can do this." And the lawyer and Trump's like, "Oh, Mike, you're too honest." And I thought like, because I guess he kept a journal, which it seems like everybody that's in Trump's orbits has kept a lot of journals. His lawyers, because apparently in the documents case, I don't know if you heard this.
It's a pretty common thing in high achievers.
Yeah, well, the lawyers in the documents case, apparently they I don't know if they flipped, or obviously they're still Trump's lawyers, but they admitted, I guess, like under oath or something, they released more journal entries or something, and they basically said, listen, this whole thing about him telling people that like he didn't know and we didn't warn him and he didn't have time, here's the paper trail of like for months before we were like, you need to start talking to the records people because they will... They flat out said they will raid your place at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. And it was like months before.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a massive paper trail.
Yeah.
On the documents case, right, so we'll go back to the indictment stuff. I mean, we've kind of gone over this before, too. But on the documents case, he knew. There is literally no way that you're... Like, it wasn't this big, huge, giant raid. Like, he knew months in advance. He made a big, huge deal out of it. Mm-hmm. I'm a victim.
Yeah.
I'm a victim. They're coming to get me. They raided my home that they warned me they were going to raid my home 6 months ago. Yeah. And then, oh, man, Pence has documents. Oh, Biden has documents. Oh, right. They asked for them and they gave them back.
Or they said, come over here and look through everything because now that we have documents, come get the rest of the documents.
Right. There was literally no trying to keep it. Interesting aside, sort of conspiracy theorist, so take what you want out of this. So, I haven't read the book. I don't know any more details, but theories. I read a really interesting article this week on Trump where basically the author took some other people's information and posited the theory that Donald Trump has been a communist Russian asset since the 1980s when he married Ivanka.
I just started reading that. What was it, like Thursday or whatever?
So I shared that article with you.
Yeah.
But basically it comes back to like the Russians, according to the KGB agent that was cited, and it's a KGB agent, so take that, whatever he said, with a grain of salt. But according to him, who was interviewed for this book, what he said was when Donald Trump and Ivana came to Moscow in 1987, we'd worked up a dossier on him. And that basically said that if we puffed up his ego, he'd pretty much do whatever we asked. And so we did. We brought him over. We told him he was the greatest, smartest man in the world. Man, like, you should run for president. You're so great. You're so amazing. And he went back and he announced he was going to run for president. And he took out a full-page ad talking about how the United States shouldn't be supporting Japan. And the United States shouldn't be supporting NATO. A full-page ad. You can look this up, because I was like, no. I had to look it up. It's true. It happened. Like, what the...
And that's just one of... So that is an excerpt of the book? The article is like an excerpt from the book that's coming
The article isn't an excerpt from it. They're citing the book.
Oh.
So the whole, like, Trump's always been Democrat, Trump's always been on the left-hand side is somewhat accurate if that's true, because he's going to associate with those people more, and they're going to be more attacking sort of Save America, right? Tear America down, tear America down. So it's kind of funny that he's gone to the conservative end of the spectrum. But that resonated with me, which makes me want to look into it more and see if there's actually any merit or any basis to it, because he loves Putin. He loves Putin. He's always talking about Putin. Yeah, I've got a dog that wants attention.
Yeah, she does that sometimes. Yeah, she likes this stuff. So, hang on. Oh, we got time. Since there's no clock around me, so I'm trying to check for time. I think you kind of summed it up. I mean, it's uninspiring, which is terrible when it comes to, you want your president to be inspiring.
Where are the leaders?
Yeah.
Where are the leaders?
Well, did you hear, Mitt Romney is not seeking re-election. And he had a great video. I saw the video where he's like, we need to have he goes, I'll be 80 if I get reelected. I'll be in my 80s.
Yeah.
We need to have a new generation of leaders. And I thought, what a guy. No matter what I thought about Mitt Romney in 2008, what a guy. He actually decided that, maybe we do need new leaders and new people too.
Yeah.
And younger people.
Yeah.
And, Breaking Points did their focus group. I don't know if you saw that. They paid for people to come in, and they're mostly Republican voters from the East Coast. And they said, should there be age limits for term limits and age limits for whatever? And one of the guys goes, yeah, maybe 75. And then, when they were analyzing it afterwards, they're like, Trump's 77, so he'd be past your, which I thought was interesting. It's like, yeah, like you said, people, I mean, you can be too well informed, but some people are just not informed, and there's stuff too, like stuff ruins, if it ruins, like we did our media episode, if it ruins your bias or whatever, then no nonsense. It's not good. Like I mean, people will lash out if something doesn't conform to their bias, instead of just like I try to, since I realize where my bias is, I try to say, okay, let's just take this for what it is.
Right.
And I watched a debate between several progressives talking about third parties. And one time I was on one side agreeing with one person, and then somebody analyzed the other side, and I was like, oh, they both bring up really interesting points. I think I agree with this side. But I didn't jump down the throat of like one party or another. I was like trying to listen to which is hard. And I'm, I hate to say it, but
at least trying to understand the other side. And that's hard nowadays too, because neither side is really concise anymore. It's all just sort of, I'm going to attack.
Yeah.
There's very little substance. There's very little policy. There's very little like hard facts and like what's going on. It's just like the other side did this terrible thing.
Yeah.
And, Biden did a terrible, terrible thing. Trump did a terrible, terrible thing. Right. You and I have talked about it multiple times, and you keep saying the same thing. But he is, where I talk about all of the accusations about Trump being racist. And you're like, yeah, but he is. That's your common response when I bring it up.
Well, I mean, I'll have some articles to back it up. But if we did an episode on Trump being racist, there's and it's not just like something he said. I mean, he was in court in the 70s because him and his dad wouldn't rent units to black people, and they had to go to court.
1970s.
Well, it kept happening.
You got to go back 40 years.
Well, it also kept happening. I mean, if we did an episode on that, like there's actual things like that happen recently.
But there's counterpoint evidence, too, that would also bring up, like, instances where he's been charitable towards minorities, right? The guy is an opportunist. He doesn't care. He's going to do what's right for him. He will screw over minorities if it's going to put money in his pocket.
Yeah.
He will help minority if it's going to put money in his pocket. It's not racism in that
Well,
case.
it's
just opportunism.
It's just like when he went when he got the vote from the LGBTQ, he was holding up a pride flag, and they're like, "We're gonna vote for him." I'm like, "What magic did he cast on you?" Listen, I played D&D. What charm illusion did he? Because my God, man, that's the guy. You're like, he's our guy. I'm like, what?
No, it's like at the end of the day, he's going to do whatever is in his best interest. He's not a Republican. He's not a Democrat. He's Trump. He's for Trump and only Trump.
So it's
he's
like
not a patriot. He
he's
doesn't
his own-
care.
he's his own-
He would wipe his butt with the Constitution if that was the only paper he
Well,
had
he wanted
do it.
to. Remember, he did that tweet about basically throwing the Constitution out and reinstating him as president.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Like there's no...
Or I'm sorry, it was a truth. It was on Truth Social.
There's no... Yeah, I don't... I'm just absolutely astounded by it. And then listening to that podcast this morning on the drive here, and he was talking about people like have so much tied their identities to their politics that it is part of who they are. So when you attack their politics, you attack their identity. And so many people really liked a lot of what Donald Trump was doing, and so they just sort of accepted it. And there's an interesting parallel. About a month ago, I listened to a podcast. Some people will know it. Most people probably won't. It's called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. And it's a podcast that goes through the rise of and collapse of a very large Seattle megachurch. It started off very small in the 1990s, grew up in the 2000 teens, like 2010, 11, 12, to being like a 15,000 member, 17, 18 location church, centered out of downtown Seattle, the most unchurched city in the country. And it all sort of built up around the cult of personality of the pastor at that church. His name was Mark Driscoll. And then everything fell apart behind that too, and so many people's identities was hurt because they built up around him.
Well, there's a book coming out, or maybe it's out. It's about a guy was like a now he's a psychologist, I believe, and he was in a cult. Obviously, he's not now, but he also goes and deprograms people that have been in cults, or at least does therapy and counsels them.
Yep.
He wrote about Trump. I think it's called The Cult of Trump. Of like, hey, this is ringing a lot of bells because like I was in a cult, and I've researched cults, and I've
I mean, the question that I would ask, and if anyone's listening to this that can answer this, why?
Oh, yeah, right into gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Yeah,
Why? Why? What about Trump? Like, what would it take to actually change your opinion about the man? What would it actually take? Are you capable of changing your opinion? Because all the charges that are against... I don't think anyone that's dyed-in-the-wool pro-Trump right now, if he's indicted, is going to change their opinion.
No.
I don't think they're going to trust the indictment.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of the judges are his own appointed judges.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. As a progressive, if they found the whole Burisma, the whole thing with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, if they found like a connection and there was money, I would be the first one to be like, I knew it. But it seems like with Trump supporters, they're like, no,
I mean,
no.
Joe, I'm just going to be honest. I don't think you are the first one to say I knew it. But you might be like, all right, he should be punished. Because I haven't heard you once be like, oh, yeah, this is totally legitimate. We should investigate. What I've heard you say is, I mean, the Republicans should be appeased because they're doing the investigation into him. But, like, where's the evidence?
That's a spot-on impression of me.
Spot on. Perfect.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
No, I think that there is that feeling of no, and then there needs to be
that
like,
would be more believable. Like, oh, really? Oh, man, like that's terrible. Yeah, he should be punished.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I wonder if you could, do like an impartial survey and just ask your conservative friends, like, hey,
what would it take?
What would it take?
Just like, what would it take for you to accept that the man lied to you?
Yeah.
And is actually a criminal?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that
What would it take for you
I would like
to accept that he shouldn't be president?
I would
again?
like to hear your friends answer that, because I also want to know, because it is strange. You keep reading all these.
You have another very close friend of yours who's very conservative, and I would dare you to ask him that question because I don't think he could answer.
I should. Well, we don't talk about politics as much as we used to.
For safety reasons.
We did.
And safety of your relationship as friends, not like he's going to attack you,
he's
you're
not
going to attack him.
anything. No, but we just didn't for a while, and then we did a little bit, and I brought up that thing in Ohio. I don't know if you heard about that. I think we talked about it. So the majority obviously is 50%.
Yep.
They wanted to do a ballot measure to make it 60%, a supermajority, because abortion was on the ballot, or going to be soon. Mm-hmm. And it was shot down by the voters. They're like, no, 50% is the majority.
Right.
Because abortion rights, pro-life, whatever, abortion rights are polling high, like above 60%. So anyway, we were talking about that, and he goes, really? And I go, yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. That's what the Conservative Party did there, Republicans. And he said, well, that's not right. Like, the majority is 50%. So, like, that makes me mad that they would try to. And I go, well, they feel that's how they have to win. They have to push it to 60%. And he was actually like, oh. Like, that kind of made me upset about that they would. And I go.
And the reality of it is I think if you get people into base conversations and you're not attacking the viewpoints, if you're actually just like trying to understand where they're coming from and then asking good, like, but what about this? What about that? Like, people frequently don't actually dig into their viewpoints or opinions. I think you can have a much better conversation on that. So that's why I want to ask the question, like, what would it actually take to you, like, really dig in as a conservative person who's pro-Trump? Like, what would it actually take for you, except that this isn't a witch hunt?
Right.
This is an actual, like, investigation. Like, because Trump's never, ever going to say that I should be investigated, right? Like, he is a narcissist. He is the textbook definition of it. He only cares about Trump. He will sell our country down the river to save his own butt.
Yeah, he might have already, like you said, with the Russian thing. I know Saudi Arabia.
If that's truth, like, I want to look into it a little bit. But, like, that makes the reason that resonates with me is because of the documents that he actually kept.
Yeah.
Like, why would he fight so hard to keep that stuff unless he actually was beholden to somebody else?
He was doing something, yeah.
Right?
So if
he couldn't profit from it, he wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's early, but I mean, was there somebody on that stage that you're thinking of voting for? Somebody like Christie or...
I mean, looking between the Republican candidates right now, my division at the moment is probably between Christie or Haley. Yeah. Haley, because I think we need a more measured person in office, and she did a really good job of recognizing, like, if I'm president for everybody. Now, she didn't word it this way, but that was kind of the whole viewpoint of her abortion argument, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think there is a debate at the end of this month, another one.
27th.
The next one. Yeah. So is there only going to be one less person because one person dropped out, probably? Or do you have to?
And Trump's likely not going to show up again.
Because I know the first one you have to get a percentage of whatever to even get on the stage.
I honestly
does
don't
that happen
know.
for the second one? I wonder.
I haven't looked. And you know what? Like, that article that you shared from Newsweek about, like, are Democrats actually canceling it, right? Like, Marjorie Taylor Greene put out, like, Democrats, how are you allowing this? What's so wrong with you? And I'm like, but we discussed at the very beginning, like, the incumbent's basically never challenged.
Yeah, they're
like, he's the incumbent. You wouldn't challenge the incumbent if it was Trump.
And they're not. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I still think it's one of those things where it's unexciting and uninspiring, but there is some things that Biden did that I think I'm with Secular Talk with Kyle. I always say his last name wrong. Kalinske, is that the bar was so low you just had to trip over it. And Biden did do some things that he mentioned in a debate or something he was doing. He's like, here's the things that he's like passed, and I agree with these. Yeah. So if I thought he was going to trip over the bar, he bunny hopped over it. So that's more than I expected out of the thing. You know?
I mean, at the moment, most independent voters and most liberal Democratic voters are going to vote for Biden anyway.
Yeah.
No one is going to vote for Trump. If conservatives put anyone who can talk concisely, who doesn't have to speak in sound bites, doesn't have to speak in zingers, but who can attack their opponent with actual data and facts, who can be composed. If the Republicans put basically anyone on their ballot other than Trump that can do that, Pence, Haley, Christie, Vivek isn't going to win it. Right now he's getting a lot of sound bites. Maybe even DeSantis, but I don't know that DeSantis is actually going to ultimately win, even though he is the number 2. He's starting to slip. Like the number 2, depending on what poll you're reading, is slipping back and forth.
And I keep hearing about like a reset. Oh, they're going to reset his campaign. I'm like, again, he let people go.
Right. So if Republicans put anyone else that's like somewhat composed and put together against Biden, they're going to win.
Right.
Because I think the majority of Americans are more towards the center, right? Bell curve. We know that there's the extremes of the left and the extremes of the right, and that's what we talk about because those are the people that are the most vocal.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is most Americans are somewhere in the middle. And if you've got a centrist candidate like Biden,
Yeah.
I'm
not one of those people he's
if the Democrat and so the Democrats are taking a risk not humoring looking at somebody else this early in the game. Because if Trump isn't the nominee,
yeah. Well, it's a thing of like, yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's sad, but I mean, that's a state. I mean, we may have another episode because obviously we have another year of this. I got my dates mixed up and I go, oh, it's soon. Oh, no, it's not. I don't know why I thought we would have like.
I don't know. There's way more coming up.
There's way more coming up.
We don't even have the actual candidates chosen yet. For me, I hope and pray that on the Republican side, people start dropping off fast after the New Hampshire primary. Like,
yeah.
I really, really hope that people start dropping out.
It's going to be really strange, too, for all those candidates because you poll really well in one place and you think, I got it. And then you tank in another, like Iowa, you do well, but then New Hampshire, you don't do, so as a candidate, you're getting all these mixed messages of like, oh, what am I going to do? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's for them in their campaign to decide. So, well, Avin, it's it's been informative. I do you kind of really hit on that. It's uninspiring, which is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm uninspired. I'm doing what it does feel like, well, I did this last time. I have to do it again type thing,
Where are the leaders?
Yeah.
We don't have any. I haven't seen a single leader out there. And probably the only person that I've seen actually show any level of gumption is probably Christie.
Yeah. Just calling it. Yeah.
Like, I'm going to call it out, and I'm going to take the hits for it.
I'm going to literally take the booze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to be out there and stand up and do it. And agree with him or not, like, he's not going to get the nominee. There's too many people on the Republican side that just wouldn't. If he's on the ballot, they're not going to vote for him if Trump's not.
Yeah.
Maybe Haley. I think she's being a little bit bold, but probably not a whole lot.
Probably not, yeah.
Pence, he's not willing to call Trump out, even though, like, literally Trump almost got him killed.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that sucks. Well, that's where we're at. We'll come back to that, though. But, so for next pod, do you want to say what it is, or is it going to be a surprise?
So, you actually brought it up, and I'd been seeing a lot of stuff about it, and I thought actually probably be a really good topic. We've been seeing a lot of just kind of pullback on Christian-based religions in the United States.
Yeah.
And people leaving the church, so to speak, and we want to talk about that. So we picked out some articles. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be literally the grief of politics because it's like where your deep moral belief system, it seems to be from the articles you shared and everything, seems to be butting heads with politics, which before it was like, I would say divorced.
More reasoned. And one of the articles actually that I read recently on it really did bring up, as people are leaving the church, how they're beginning to identify themselves because they're no longer getting that balance.
Oh. Well, that'll be good. Yeah, that'll be next month. I just want to remind everybody, if you like the episode, share it with your friends, family, dog, if they have a YouTube account. You can write to us at gwgpodfellas@gmail.com. Subscribe on all the podcast services. The video version goes up usually the 20th on YouTube in the morning and Spotify in the evening, 7 a.m. in the morning. And then the audio goes up very early, probably the 19th, actually, the way it posts, because I can't set timers for the audio to post. I can do it for video. But, yeah, so another good episode. And I guess we'll see everybody next month.